Chairman, thank you, Madam Secretary, for taking the time to be here. I'd like to visit with you a little bit on Blueways. During your oral testimony, you commented that you were taking a pause on Blueways. Does this mean that you fundamentally think that it is flawed?
Congressman, I'm just beginning to understand what it is, and I think that there's still further definition. Blueways, as I understand it, and I've asked questions and read about it, is intended to be a bottoms-up community focus to bring recognition to its rivers. There's no restrictions that are put on that by a Blueways designation. It's really an opportunity for a community to market its natural assets to drive tourism. But as you probably are aware, we had a request to designate a river in Arkansas as a Blueway, and then a subsequent request to remove that. So it's clear that there's a lack of understanding, and that's why I put it on pause.
In fact, a number of members of the committee, we'd sent a letter to you in regards to some concerns that we have on Blueways. When you talk about a specific example, you'd rescinded the Blueways designation on the White River. Is that going to be permanent?
At this point in time, I'm not going to be doing any other designations until we figure out the future of the program.
So will that one be permanent?
If the program continues and the community says that they want it back on, I guess I would reconsider it. But at this point, I'm responding to community demands.
When we're talking about the community, can we drill down on that just a little bit? Do you think it's appropriate for non-local groups to be able to submit rivers for designation?
I get letters from all over the country about things that are outside of people's area. I will...
When we're talking about the local community?
I think local communities are local communities. They are communities along these waterways.
So we shouldn't allow people that are outside of the area to be able to submit designation?
Congressman, I don't mind people submitting comments. I will tell you that when I talk about local community input, I mean local communities, and that's where you want these things to come from, and that's my understanding of the program.
You know, when we're talking about the West, and you're familiar with it, does from source to mouth on non-navigable rivers, does that really even make sense in terms of designation, given what you know about the West?
I am not familiar with the details of the program. I think that if communities from the source to the mouth of a river together decided they wanted to highlight that river, that's okay.
And talking about local communities, do you believe, you've grown up in the West, you've lived out there, should we respect private property rights?
Of course we respect private property rights.
And should we respect state law?
Of course.
And so with the Blueways designation, with the state of Colorado as an example, big part of my district out there, you would support us in the position of being able to protect private property rights when it comes, because private property rights include water in the state of Colorado and for most of the West. Mm-hmm. Also, we have state laws, priority-based systems. You will stand with us to make sure that those are protected.
Of course.
Great. I certainly appreciate that. I'd like to go ahead and move on to the sage-grouse issue. We'd had Congressman Bishop bring it up. Southern Utah, Western Colorado, we've got a lot of programs that are going on and being very effective in terms of recovery of the sage-grouse. We'd sent you a letter, and I know you're probably being deluged with them, to be able to come out. But we have had the suspension out of Fish and Wildlife for 6 months on the designation. In that 6-month period of time, would you be willing to come to Western Colorado to be able to see what we are doing at that local level where we love the land the most and want to be able to preserve it?
I have a tricky schedule. I will certainly endeavor to try and get out there in the next 6 months. I know I actually will be in Colorado later this week in the Denver area dealing with some other things, but I do know, having been recently in Utah with the Western governors and talking about sage-grouse, that there's a lot of really great stuff going on.
There is, and we would love, and we'll try and work with your office to be able to do that. One area that I do think is important, and I would ask you to look at it, the broad brush stroke to where we have recovery in specific areas, and you know the geography, they will never come out from under designation. Let's get it localized. Let's use some common sense business principles to be able to apply to that. And when we're talking about business principles that you talked on in regards to line item budgets, you had said with regards to sequestration, trying to prioritize funds. Is it a priority, given the forest fires that we're having right now in the West, to be able to spend $60 million out of the Forest Service to acquire new lands when we say that we can't even manage the lands we have?
I would not put the two in the same sentence. I think that they are different, and I don't know the specifics of what the Forest Service is looking to acquire, but I do know that sometimes land acquisitions don't cost more, they cost less because you're removing checkerboards, you're doing sensible things around land management, so I wouldn't actually equate the two.
Time of the gentleman has expired.